Hello, everyone. Welcome back. So we have our next speaker, Marcella Ceva. Marcella is Chief Investment Officer at We Ventures, Microsoft, and she will today share her presentation and knowledge on closing the gender gap in STEM careers. Welcome, Marcella, and thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Pierre, for having me. Again, I was here this morning in another session, and it was such a huge pleasure to be with amazing, inspiring, strong, hardworking, intelligent women. So thank you. It's just a great opportunity to be here and to speak of our cause, right? As you mentioned, um, I'm currently the Chief Investment Officer at We Ventures. We Ventures is a venture capital fund idealized by Microsoft in Brazil, and we tackle the gender gap problem in venture capital. And how do we do that? Our main problem here is startups founded by women only received 2% of global venture capital, even though they generate more returns. And We Ventures is here to break that cycle, right? And we, along the years, throughout the years, we've been around for 4 years now. Throughout the years, we've observed behavior and came to understand that this is a global pattern. It's a systemic problem. It's something much bigger than just why is only 2% of the money reaching women founders. And we came to a few conclusions doing that. So I bring you some slides here with food for thought for everybody to think, and we'll bring a discussion. I'll try to be brief so that I can finish before the time ends and we can have a discussion afterwards. But while women make up more than half of the entry level finance workforce in the United States, okay, so more than half, that sounds equal, only about 6% of the top public financial institutions have women in senior positions. What does this tell us? Women are not sitting in the decision making positions in finance in America. I bring American data, sometimes global, sometimes American, just to contextualize better. And of course, America has more advanced data than Brazil. But so we only see 6% of women ahead of financial institutions in the States. And why is that? Okay, so we're digging deeper into the problem. First, I bring you that only 2% of the global venture capital dollars reach women. Now I tell you that only 6% of women are ahead of financial institutions in America. So this creates kind of a funnel, right? Even though in yearly MBA programs, we see sometimes more women are entering MBA programs than men. Sometimes this changes, but usually you see a very equitable environment in MBA programs. You can see only 16% of women ahead of finance faculty in top business schools. So what does this create? What did we understand from all of this? We only have 6% of women making decisions in finance. So this necessarily means that a woman, I'm talking now about venture capital, so a woman pitching her startup company to fundraise with 100 different funds will necessarily speak to 94, 90 something percent of men, right? And these men, they are not, it doesn't mean that they don't believe in women or they don't like the product. It's just that every one of us, we all have unconscious biases of that's been overly publicized by the UN, right? So when that woman founder pitches her product to 90 something men, most likely she will have, and this has also been case studied across the globe, she will have biased questions. Men will tend to think more personal questions of women, and that results necessarily in less investment in women. So the problem we're tackling here is that few women, we don't have role models of women in STEM careers, in finance. Women are simply not there as of today. We are getting better. Now we see this difference in MBA classes that sometimes we do have more women entering programs than men, but still we're lacking women role models in financial institutions, in STEM careers, and therefore, if we don't have the role models, few women enroll in STEM, and therefore few women graduates, and we have this cyclical problem. We're facing this. So why only 2% of the capital reaches women? Because women are not making the decisions. They're not there. And we see across the globe now that there is a genuine, intentional effort to get women there, and this is extremely necessary. So across the globe, as I said, women who enroll in STEM careers, higher education, are around 20 to 30%. So in Brazil, it's 20, in some countries, it's 30. I have the data for country by country. We can discuss it later. But so, and the UN made another research. It was really interesting. Their findings were that schools, so we tackling this in the school level, not yet in university level, but in school level, schools that had female teachers teaching STEM subjects like math, sciences, etc., graduated more female students into STEM careers. That was fantastic. Now, if you can take a look at data again, American data, around 22% of students who take AP computer science are women. So that's very representative of the pool of women we see receiving that 2% of capital. You see, if only 22% of students are taking AP computer are women, this means in Brazil, for Brazilian numbers, for example, you get 20% of women graduating in STEM, 5% of women more or less ahead of technology companies. That's a very low number, and this all part of the systemic problem we're trying to tackle here. So there's been another study that has been published with real demographics showing that there is a positive and significant association between the proportion of female math and science teachers in a high school and the likelihood that a female student will choose a STEM-related major. So this is essentially the same research that the UN published a few years ago. So what does this mean? Yes, high schools with female math and science teachers do graduate more female students into STEM careers. That's so fantastic, and that's something that we as a society can all work on. So reaching here more data, $172 trillion. That's a large number, right? That's the historical balance of including women in the economy. And then I'm going to enter here. Many times well, at least in my field of work, I understand that there's a lot of a sense that this is women against men, and it's not. It's definitely not. So the world is finally opening up this trillion-dollar opportunity and supporting women entrepreneurship. And why women? There's a concept called the gender dividend. What does this mean? Equal pay for women and men would represent a 20% in global GDP per capita and more than a 50% increase in GDP per capita for women. So what does this mean? 2 to 6 trillion increase in global GDP. That's economic development for everyone. So this is definitely not women versus men. This is everyone going ahead as a society in the globe. Also, Harvard research stated that for every dollar invested, female-led startups generate 78 cents in revenue, while male-led startups convert at just 31 cents. So female-founded companies are in fact more lucrative and still receive less investments. And on average, those startups founded by women have faster exits as well, around 1 year difference in exit timing. So women founded businesses are more profitable, have more access, have faster access, and still, because of our cultural systemic problems, and I say this again, the cultural systemic problems we're facing and trying to tackle, they still receive less investments than men. And the third very interesting point of information is that in publicly traded technology and finance companies, they were studied by Stanford, if I'm not mistaken, for a long while. They studied all of their public reports, public reports, and they noted that the share price rose whenever those companies announced greater diversity policies. policies. And they obviously compare that to other announcements that didn't move share price. So this comes to say that the market is already seeing the importance of diversity in all levels of a company, not only diversity in the base level. We strongly believe that is the main driver for innovation that will enable companies to create better products that have a better product market fit, right? A more diverse group of people working in a product will definitely bring in the points of view of different people represented and a better representation of our markets, right? And 132 years would be the time required to close global gender gap as of today. This is the World Economic Forum. This used to be 220 years the first time they, I'm sorry, the first time they released this number. This used to be 220 years in the World Economic Forum. And then they reviewed it to 132, which means we are all, as a society, making great advance, right? We're cutting back on these years necessary to reach gender equity as a society in general across the globe. And how can we contribute for a more equitable future for women in STEM? This is where I think we need to tackle this in all levels. We were discussing this earlier, and it's so funny how what I'm bringing here to this talk ties into everything we spoke of earlier today. By coincidence, these slides were already ready for a long while. So we do need to tackle to be able to break this cycle. We do need to tackle the problem in all levels. So we need to tackle it at home, we need to tackle it in schools and in universities, and we need to tackle it as a society, in our workplace, everywhere we go. At home, and this also involves education, right? But we have, as women and as parents, we have a very strong responsibility with our kids and what we teach them. And we've seen, most of us have seen, how kids are not born biased, and we as a society teach them to be, right? So it's very important that we start not teaching that at home. Our previous generations had that kind of culture that is thankfully beginning to be substituted by acceptance and empathy, and definitely no bias. So this is very important that we are aware and intentional at home while educating our kids, because some of us, not all of us, but some of us did receive a very biased education towards gender. So today there's no such thing as girls cannot play soccer and boys cannot play with dolls, right? We need to be very intentional with gender orientation at home. I'm not getting into gender identity at all. It's just a means to bring the concept of gender equality ever since kids are born, right? So the first ones to have contact with the kids are parents. And then in schools, we definitely need to be able to combat the stereotypes. There's been also extensive research with kids in schools, kids until middle and high school as well, but that they usually say that, and that varies a lot from country to country, but many times kids report that they don't do, for example, they don't sign up for AP Math, or they don't sign up for AP Calculus, AP computer programming, etc., because of what other people will think of them. They'll think of me as a nerd, they'll think of me as this or that. So the more advanced the more socially advanced countries have better rates of children signing up for STEM subjects in school, specifically because they feel safe and free to do that. And that means there are no stereotypes in school. So the stereotypes are sometimes underestimated, but they're definitely something we need to look at and be aware of and combat as actively as we can, so that women will feel safe in STEM. Also involving education, but into our homes, Traditionally, and I mentioned that before earlier today as well. Traditionally, historically, if we get many and many generations behind, um, women are statistically those who follow up kids' homeworks the most. And also statistically and historically, women are not present in STEM. So it was common for our grandmothers to say things. I'm sorry, I have a bad cough again. Just a second. For women to say, for grandmothers to say, I'm not good at math, so let's wait for your dad. When he gets home, he will help you. Things like that. That was something that our grandmothers, our great grandmothers used to say at home, and that's definitely something we need to work on as mothers today. And I'm a mother, but we need to work that on that as mothers. We need, even if we're not as comfortable and as happy with math and with STEM and with whichever subject is at hand, we need to show them that we are confident, that there is no difference between women and men regarding STEM, and that we are confident and we like it, and they are allowed to like it, and we are willing to help them, and we will try our best because, hey, we need to praise effort. So effort for the mothers as well, even if we're not comfortable with whatever it is, we're trying and we're willing to do it and to help, and never delegate it to the fathers and to the male figures in the house. That would be just, building more and more into this cycle that we're trying to break. And third, in education, schools also, this is also based on research, schools and universities, the more they create policies to attract women in STEM, the better results they have. And um, the best they did here was the role models mentioned earlier. So female teachers ahead of STEM subjects definitely do convert higher rates of girls, young women into STEM careers. So faculty and management should be aware of this and should intentionally um, create these policies, right? To make sure that women are attracted, are not only feeling safe, are not only feeling capable, but also attracted. What's in it for me as a girl, right? Now I'm signing up to be the only girl in mechanical engineering class. What's in it for me? So schools and management and faculties should definitely come up with policy to attract women in STEM, not only make them feel safe and welcome. And as a society, we we are in the process of breaking cycles, in the process of breaking stereotypes. So a distribution of domestic chores is still something that is very relevant. Again, the more advanced, the more socially advanced the country is, the least this is the issue. But here in Brazil, for example, this is still a big issue. Um, Domestic chores should not be viewed as female responsibility. And the more we work on this, of course, it's a work in progress everywhere in the world. So the more we work on this as couples, as parents, the better uh, the next generation will be about this, right? So they will be more aware, and they will raise their kids to be even more aware and more equitable in all senses. Because the least, we already know that the women carrying a higher load of domestic chores definitely leaves them less time for all the rest of the things that women have to do professionally. So we should definitely, as a society, work towards a better distribution of this, so that it's just equitable. We're not saying men have to take it all on. No, it's just to be better distributed.
Mm-hmm.
Also, as in our workplace, so this is at home, then going into the workplace, we have to be vocal as women, not only at home, about our triple, double, quadruple journeys, but also in the workplace. right? There's also sad statistics showing that there's a huge drop in the female workforce around 30s and 40s, because many women they have, depending on their situation in the world, they have to choose between working or taking care of the kids. And many women need to take care of the kids, and they have to drop their careers for a while or maybe permanently, and that's just very sad to see. And it goes against the economic development that we're all seeking here. So we need to be vocal in our workplaces so that better benefits and better policies will be created. This, at least here in Brazil, is a work in progress. We're seeing companies starting to get up to speed on that. I know that in the States and in first world countries, that's really a much more advanced topic. But here and everywhere in the world, I think this still women need to be vocal. Nobody else will be vocal for us. Men will not create the policies that we need. They are not required to understand and visualize our needs if we don't bring them to the table. So it's on us. We really need to be vocal and help construct a better workplace for women and STEM as well. And lastly, we as women, again, being vocal again at home and in our workplaces, we need to be vocal, and we need to join policy making and advocacy. We need to be vocal with our leaders, with our representatives. We need to make our needs known. If we are silent, nobody will advocate for us because nobody will know what we need, right? So we definitely should join forces and make the world, make our leaders, make our representatives, make policy know what is it that we need in to attract more women to STEM or to attract more women to the workforce in general, right? And I'll close up here. I'm not sure how I am with time, but I will.
You still have 5 minutes left.
Good, fantastic. So
I'll wrap this up. Yeah, we have questions for you as well. So
okay, I'll wrap this up and we'll go to the questions in spite of my cough. So I'll wrap this up with a thought by Melinda Gates, obviously our muse here, our inspiration, when she says, when you invest in a girl or a woman, you invest in everyone else. So it's just a final note, really, that I feel sometimes, as I said, many people understand this as women versus men, and there is absolutely no competition, no versus, not at all. This is women and men teaming up towards economic development for everybody, right? So our main goal here is equality and economic development.
Great. Thank you so much, Marcella. We have 7 minutes. So I see there's a question here, and I also have another one. So, you know, it's interesting because you are speaking about role models. And one of the things that could also be mentioned, I think, is that history has been written by men. And you have actually, there are a lot more role models, women role models in history than what we see. Nowadays, you have a lot more coming to the surface with stories about an engineer at NASA, you know, who made all the significant calculations, or in the DNA discovery of the DNA, there was also, I forgot her name, a woman who really she did all the job. It was completely stolen by 2 men, and they basically got the medal. There's many histories like that, where you see that, you know, history was written by men, and hence women are out of the history. So that needs to change as well, I think. And luckily, it is changing. But the media and historians have a big role to play here as well, to bring forward, you know, feminine role models.
Absolutely, yes. And again, we circle back to the cyclical problem. Perhaps that's not my field of study, but perhaps there aren't enough women ahead of media outlets, and therefore not enough, well, historically, so therefore not enough women were showcased in the history books. Yep.
And then you said something about, so obviously here we're speaking about VC and investments, and reminds me about, you know, a Dutch VC fund who is only investing in women CEOs. And
I
I'm
love
sure,
it.
yeah, but I'm sure there are other funds like that, but also on the basis that results and returns are actually better. And they tend to overachieve compared to other funds. We have a question from Josh, and Josh says, what efforts do you think need to happen now for investors listening to discussions like this to back female founders?
Well, I think there's definitely numbers don't lie. So you just mentioned that a Dutch fund also notices that returns are better. So the first and foremost, I think men can start male investors can put some research and conscious effort into looking into female founded businesses and their numbers and their results, because they are extremely optimistic and not optimistic, because the results that the performance is better, right?
Yeah.
So they should definitely make this conscious effort and be intentional about it, studying, looking into opening initiatives. I've seen across the globe many funds don't have an exclusive funds to invest in women, but what many of them do, they open up a chapter. Okay, so we will determine that X percent of the fund of our total AUM will be directed to women founders. The intentional effort will help us bridge this gap so much faster. And we are, again, when I mentioned the gender dividend, we are not asking for, this is not charity. This is not a matter of social volunteering or anything. We're showing better results. So just make the research, and then make the bets. They will definitely pay off.
Yeah. But I mean, 132 years to close the gap. If you think about it, it's roughly 30 years per generation. That's a long time. There's really a lot of generations. So that was surprising.
We did go from 220 to 230. So we
Yeah.
did hit up like 90 years really fast, because I think the first number they released was in 2017, if I'm not wrong, or maybe
Okay.
2011.
All right. Okay.
So we did our initial effort was really effective.
Yeah.
I'm sure at some point we will gravitate towards, a slower pace, but right now I think we're bridging that gap really fast, specifically because the gap was so huge, right? You see across the globe. In 1970, women had 25% of the rights that men have globally, and now we're closing that gap as well towards So everything is moving faster because the gap was so large. Now when we gravitate towards something a little closer, I think, yes, we will have around 20 years per generation at least. Yep.
Yeah. And that's why I like initiatives like B Corp, because it kind of forces companies to do an X-ray screening of their company. And so we did one, of course. So we are B Corp, and we are in the process of really recertifying. And I can tell you that it's really humbling when you're looking at these metrics, because everybody thinks they're doing a fantastic job. And then you start looking at the metrics and how, where you should, be, and you see the differences. So for instance, we would need to have, a lot more women in our company. We do an extra push. So if we have listeners here who wants to join FluTech, especially women, please let us know. Marcella, I was really. Oh, go ahead, please.
No, I was going to agree with you and bring something that's kind of controversial here, but I think that companies, they need to do the effort, and honestly, we shouldn't attain ourselves so much to the reason. So if you are changing your corporate policy toward women, bringing up more benefits, or making intentional hire, something like that, because there is legislation, because you want to achieve a certain certification, or because it's just organic, it really doesn't matter. What matters is that you do it, that companies do it, that companies bring women there, make a more better environment for women to be there. So there's a lot of controversy and the reason, oh, we need to know the reason. They're just joining because they want a certification. It's fantastic that you're getting a certification. It's fantastic that you're changing your policy. That's how we're going to bridge the gap.
Yeah. You're right. Great. Just 15 minutes over. So great. It was fantastic to have you today. And
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. See you later.
Thank you very much. Have a great day. Bye.
Yeah, you too. Bye, Marcella. Bye-bye.
Bye.